Hey guys, Vinnie, Mirchandani. A real pleasure to have Rahul Samant, who is the CIO at Delta Airlines. Now, Delta, you would think the whole airline sector is going to go through a really hard time. But as I've learned from many of these interviews, beyond the surface, a lot of innovation, a lot of activity that is going on to make their customers feel a lot more comfortable. Rahul, I'm going to let you talk about what Delta does, but before you do that, tell us a little bit about your background. I know you've done a lot of work in the financial services sector. So,
Sure. Hey, thank you. Thanks, Vinny, for having me. And I know you're a multi-million miler on Delta Airlines. We really, really appreciate that. You being a valued customer of ours as well.
I'm calling myself a frequent sufferer.
Oh, I hope not. I hope not. But, I think, listen, I came out of financial services, as you said, 24 years, Bank of America for about 2 decades, and then AIG for the last 4 as chief digital officer, and then moved to Delta in 2016. And, we do have a lot of portable skills when you go across IT roles like that. BFA is huge, scale, complexity, scope. I had the good fortune of being able to work in all of the 3 major divisions: consumer, wholesale, wealth management. So learned a lot about the different domains and working in a highly regulated environment. And then AIG in 2012 was just coming out of the throes of the financial crisis, the aftermath of the crisis, whole different set of experiences there in terms of working through adversity and still trying to digitalize an insurance business, global in nature. So and then Delta's been an absolute dream come true in terms of the business to consumer marketplace, rapid digitalization, and then just a culture that is so unique and people centric that it's really fit my personality and allowed me to do some things here. So it's been a great journey.
Well, you could have been at a BFA and handling all the billions of PPP loans.
That's true. That's true.
You're in a better place. Rahul, we've been seeing acrobatics in every sector, right? In auto companies jumping in to make ventilators, all kinds of last mile logistics, healthcare heroics, and so on. From the outside, it seems like travel and hospitality is like, oh my God, you're getting a lot of sympathy. It's like, market must be dead. But it can be dead, right? So tell us about all the stuff you're doing. First of all, the scaling down that you needed to do, the mothballing that you needed to do, and then what are you doing to make people feel comfortable? I mean, surely you're not just giving up, right? I'm sure there's a lot of acrobatics going on, particularly at Delta. So tell us about that.
Great question, Vinny, because I think, from the outside, it would just seem like we are in a retrench mode, but we are in some cases because, let me paint the business backdrop briefly. So Jan and Feb were record months for us, and that's over 5 or 6 years of record revenues, record passenger volumes, customers flying more and more. And then Jan and Feb were true to form. We were doing great. We were ahead of plan and flying record volumes. And then first week of March, we start to see the softness. And from the second week of March, it's almost like the bottom falls out. So within about 3 weeks, I've never seen a business environment decline as rapidly as this one did. In 3 weeks, we went to 5% of our customer volume that we would have normally expected. Think about that, right? We lost 95% of our volume within a short 3 weeks in March. So what was great was, my boss, our CEO, setting very clearly in that middle of March, literally the week of March 9th, he had set 3 priorities for the company. And priority number 1, true to Delta culture, people first, culture, deep-rooted, was we're going to protect our customers and our employees. We're going to take care of our customers, we'll take care of our employees. So that was priority 1. Priority 2 was we were burning $100 million a day in cash, right? And no business, no matter how well your liquidity is, and what kind of a war chest you build. No business can sustain that for long. So priority number two was to make sure that we preserved cash. And priority number three was sort of don't do anything stupid, because we are going to come out of this. We are going to be a strong survivor. In fact, if we do this right and play to our strengths and accelerate some of the business technology transformations that were already in plan, if we accelerate that, we will come out even stronger on a relative basis. Right? It's going to take us 2 to 3 years to get back to where we were, but on a relative basis, in 12 months, we could have made so much profit. So that's the business backdrop. So it did involve some amount of, as our CEO said, putting the airline to sleep, right? So you see pictures of those planes lined up in the desert. And we didn't just do that. We went a step further and we said, hey, to avail of that priority three and accelerate it, why not take the MD-88s and 90s, which we were going to retire in 5 years, and just go ahead and retire them. And then we took another step, another very bold step, and just retired the 18 777s in the fleet, right? Because we have long-haul planes, which are the 350s, that are capable of doing those routes. So we'll just fly 350s when we come out of the crisis. So definitely from a optics perspective, when you see the visual of hundreds of planes of all brands and all logos lined up, in the desert in Arizona, and you hear announcements of 95% off on volumes, and you hear about the fleet retirements, you would think that that is all we're doing. And that is not all we are doing, right? There's absolute heroics going on. You called it, acrobatics, heroics going on. We are still flying, right? We're flying 1,000+ flights a day. And that means thousands of our frontline teammates are serving customers. And the customer travel isn't discretionary sightseeing and tourism right now, as we all know. It's absolutely essential, not just to the country, but to the world. So we're flying, medical supplies. We're doing an immense amount of cargo. We're flying medical personnel. In fact, we've done that for free to some of the hardest hit locations where we'll just let volunteers fly on Delta for free. We're repatriating thousands, tens of thousands of our colleagues, United States citizens, who are stuck in all parts of the world. And so these are Department of State flights that are contracted and that we run them back from Mumbai, for example. We've run, 8 or 10 of these flights, a couple a week to bring people back home. So there's so much of that, or people just wanting to go see sick, near and dear ones. We're doing all that. We're an essential service. So the heroics that go on in front of the customer, that people are putting themselves out there every day, even though they're going through the same personal, thought process that you and I are going through about health and safety and concerns, they're not batting an eyelid. I mean, that is the strength of our company, and we're doing that. Behind the scenes, there's been so much, that we've done in terms of getting from 100 million down to 50 million burn right now, on our way to 35, on our way to 0 by the end of the year is our avowed goal. So our finance teammates have done Herculean work on that. Our HR teammates in keeping everything, stable and morale high. Supply chain. I mean, we weren't out there looking for masks and sanitizing, disinfectants, and any of those things, right? Or electrostatic fogging equipment. That wasn't even in our plan 90 days ago. And our supply chain people have jumped through hoops to get that. And the same with IT, right? We've done a lot in terms of enabling people, thousands of people overnight to work from home, procuring, laptops. Luckily, we had them warehouse. So we had those, getting our MS Teams and our WebEx platforms working flawlessly from a collaboration perspective, and then making sure that refunds, which there's a lot of noise out in the media about, and are the airlines doing refunds? Well, let me tell you, I can't speak for the industry, but our airline, we have refunded a $1.5 billion of cash refunds since this thing started. And the volume has been immense. So a lot of acrobatics, a lot of heroics.
Some of your applications must just have been, the scaling must have been phenomenal, right? Refunds. I presume your capacity planning has been run multiple times a day, it would seem like, given all the changes that you're having to do.
Yeah,
Equipment changes and the.
yeah, the two areas you hit on, you're spot on. So schedule changes are just frequent, right? And we've got to flex the IT infrastructure and the app layer, the data layer to support that. And we've managed to do that really well. And then the volume coming into our engagement centers for not reservations. We hope, someday it'll be back for new bookings, but for cancels, changes, rebookings, and refunds, that volume in mid-March was like nothing we had seen before. And we had to be quick on our feet to make sure that everything from trunk lines, right? So just the connectivity part, comms part of it, to the applications, to people who were being scaled. Interesting thing I'll tell you on the reservation side, because we had to practice social distancing very quickly, right? So we wanted to make sure that those teammates, a few thousand of them that are on the phones and in the front line of serving our customers, could also avail of social distancing. So how do you do that in a typical customer engagement center where you're right by each other, right? There's just a little wall separating you. So we actually took a school over in Montana, and the local mayor was very supportive. We have a contact center up there. He was very supportive and allowed us to take a school that was vacant because there's no one in the school. And we converted a big part of the school into an engagement center. We took our Delta Museum, which is a beautiful museum right on our campus, and in 72 hours, set up 300 of our contact center agents inside the museum. And then we took a Sky Club in Cincinnati inside the airport and did the same for about 80 of our teammates. So just fast thinking, and that's when the culture really helps, right? You reap what you sow, and we believe and we pride ourselves on being a Delta family. Everyone just jumped in to help.
That's great. Hey, I got a couple of commercial real estate buildings that may be available if you. That is fantastic to hear. Tell us about bringing customers back, right? It seems like more than other industries, because of the distancing issues and hygiene stories and so on, have a hurdle to cross in terms of making people comfortable. So tell us what you're thinking about, improvements you're making there, PR that you're doing to make people comfortable.
Sure. And I think, look, the PR follows the authenticity of what we're doing. So we're not saying anything that we're not doing, and we're saying it only after we've proven it, because everything has to be proven at scale. In a safe, regulated environment, given the industry that we're in. I'll tell you, on the physical side, we are going to own clean. And I don't say that with any hubris, right? We were the on-time machine. We owned reliability for the industry. We were number one by all accounts and external accounts. And again, I say that with complete humility. Those are the metrics, right, that Delta has strived and attained over the last decade. And now, while keeping those intact, we're not going to give up on those. We have to do the same and wage a war on cleanliness and personal health and personal safety, right? What was always important was, hey, reliability when you're in the air was our number one priority. So safety was, of course, always the number one priority within the industry at large. And we'd like to think, on-time reliability or on-time performance was right behind it. And we felt very good about how good Delta was as a brand. when it came to those and to customer service as a number three. We're going to have to turn that into the same thing for cleanliness and personal hygiene and personal safety. So obviously we're doing all the obvious things that you see everywhere else. We're doing social distancing. There's masks now that we're recommending customers wear, and of course requiring that our employees wear. We are going to more of the touchless every place that we can. So if you remember, Vinnie, we were about 18 months ago, we were the first out in Atlanta with a complete touchless terminal. So basically from curb all the way to your seat at 5 points of interaction, you wouldn't have to touch anything. It was all facial, right? It was all facial recognition. So we're talking to the TSA, the CBP, about how do we expand that broader to domestic. That was an international terminal. How do we broaden that to domestic? From a cleaning perspective, yes, we were cleaning planes between turns, right? Between flights all the time. But the level and intensity and the deep cleaning now that's going on, you probably have seen these electrostatic foggers, as we call them, but they're just sanitation equipment, and we've got hundreds of them now, and every plane goes through that fogging process. You've seen we've capped our capacity at 60% in the main cabin and 50% in business class or domestic first class. So the middle seats are empty, where it's a 2 and a 3 configuration. We've got a checkerboard of seats that are available. All of that to make sure that customers feel comfortable coming back. We're out doing some communication now to our customers and to the public at large about the HEPA filters, right? These filters that are on the plane. There's a myth about a myth about the fact that the air quality on planes is not good, and we're recycling this air 10 to 30 times an hour through these high energy HEPA filters that take away 99.9% of viruses and bacteria. So you're probably in a you are in a much cleaner environment, air quality wise, on the plane than you could be in many, many, many other public settings. So now the holy grail is vaccines, right? Until then, we'll do all of these things, and temperature screening and contact tracing and work with the public health authorities to create an ecosystem that fosters and engenders confidence. But, for the foreseeable future, we're going to have to go through this. But in 12 months, if we have vaccines at scale, then a lot of this stuff starts to become maybe a little less relevant.
Talk a little bit about, you have more international destinations than many other airlines. Talk a little bit about how that experience is likely to change. Because, a lot of people say that's dead, right? Partly because customers don't even know if they'll be allowed to land somewhere, or if they land somewhere, they'll be in quarantine for 2 weeks. But what are you doing to make the international flying experience somewhat acceptable?
Yeah. I mean, look, if we're flying 60% capacity, you can't make a profit, right? No business can say, hey, we're going to shut down 40% of what I built in terms of servable capacity and yet make a profit. We're not going to be able to do that. So the way we're looking at the trends right now is, but we're prepared to do that, right? For the foreseeable future, don't get me wrong. But in order for the business model to completely work, that's got to at some point cease. We're seeing the green shoots, and the green shoots are, today it's all essential travel. We're starting to see some leisure, domestic, to mountains, to national parks, to the coast. And we expect beyond that, business, domestic to come in, and then international will follow. And so we pared down where we fly. We're flying to about a dozen countries instead of 50 plus. that we usually do. And that's also because of what you said, which is the patchwork of regulations. Some countries will allow you in, but then make you self-quarantine. Some won't even allow you in if you're coming from certain countries. Some won't let you in if you've been to another country on a list for the last, whatever day. So it's just really hard for a common, customer just looking to go somewhere who's not in the intricacies of all this like we are as airline people to make head or tail out of it. So I think we're prepared for we're patient about when it's going to come back. But I think you can expect what we're doing, as I talked about, right? The deeper cleaning, the letting people self-serve, right? Food and beverage, a little harder on an 8 to 10 hour, but you can leave a tray rather than come and do, a course meal, even in first class. And so some of those things will have to change to give people the feeling that they are cocooned and there is some separation between them and there's not a lot of human touch and contact. But people will fly. People will fly. And we know because the pent-up demand is so high. So we just saw the first two green shoots on international. Greece and Portugal both made an announcement that they're opening their borders to international travelers as of July 1. And we have routes to Athens and to Lisbon, and we will be putting on that service back on. And we'll see how the flying, consumers react. Those are very desirable destinations. And with all the protective measures that we're putting in place, hopefully we'll start getting some of the travelers to come back.
Well, and every state, every country is going to need new revenue. So tourism is clearly one that is going to be attractive.
Absolutely.
To your point about patchwork, I've talked to a number of companies about their reopening protocols. And to a person, they've said shutting down was tough, but opening up is turning out to be 10 times more difficult because it's just the quilt work of different people opening at different times, confusing, conflicting guidance, and so on. Let's talk a little bit about your IT. So how was work from home? I mean, other CIOs have said cloud applications were a dream as we moved to work from home. On-premise stuff, VPN, tunneling, there were a lot of issues. What was your experience? Because your reservation systems are fairly on-premise and experience.
We are actually, Vinnie, we're 95% still an on-prem shop. We had just started our cloud migration journey on some newer digital workloads. And so that's where we had started taking some good steps. And all of our operational systems that carry most of the volume, whether it's in the operations command center or at the airports or in the reservation center, which was, as I said, buffeted by extreme high volumes, all of those are on-prem. And I'll tell you what, lucky, good, whatever you want to call it, they work like a charm. And we had, a few hours here and there where we would see that extreme spike, a 10x spike, and no one can cater on-prem for a 10x, spike. And so we had to run hard at those and make sure that we could alleviate the bottlenecks. And the way we did it, at times we would do brownouts of certain functionality in a modular fashion that really isn't in demand, right? So if our reservation agents are doing more cancels and changes and rebookings, but there isn't a lot of award redemption coming right now, as you would expect, then it's safe to, take capacity away from award redemption and move it to some of the other modules. So that helped a lot, and we did that, and we have really good people, good teamwork between business and IT. So we saw the storm. Soon as we saw it, either preemptively, we were able to do some things, or when it hit, if it did unexpectedly, within 3 hours, we were able to, relieve the choke point. So that's on the operating side, where I think cloud has been phenomenal, has been on the things we had done recently, like going to O365. So about 90% of our people are on O365, and that worked well. MS Teams has worked well. We are fully integrated telephony as well as video collaboration on Cisco WebEx. That worked like a charm. We've got Facebook's Workplace as our internal social media platform. And, all of our top leaders are doing these virtual town halls, including our CEO weekly. And we have 10,000 people watching him on that. I do one bi-weekly on WebEx, up to 1,800 people at a time watching on that. So all of those have gone extremely well on the cloud side. And then on the on-prem side, we had a couple glitches. Hopefully our customers didn't feel much pain on that in March, but since March, it's been, very good.
Well, you certainly, I'm being benchmarked to state unemployment sites, so I'm sure you've had a few annoyed customers, but I hear you guys have been actually have come through this very well, especially the refunds and so on. You told me you're looking at a 2-3 year recovery. So maybe this question is, you already answered it, but I'm asking everyone, look at the economy. Do you expect a V recovery, a sharp rebound? Do you expect a gradual U recovery? Do you expect a W, flare up somewhere, slowing things down, or certain regions trailing others? Or do you see an L, which is, it's going to be dead for a while?
Yeah, we've tried to stay away from the letter, because that can get into, a lot of different connotations, as you said.
Well, there's the Nike swoosh too, a couple of people.
Yeah, the Nike swoosh too. I'll tell you what we do know for a fact. We see it. We're starting to see the volume, start to trickle back, but it's coming off such a low base. When your trough was, 3% of your flown volume, right? Regular flown volume. And we saw days where we were 3%. If that grows by 20%, you can do the math, right? And so it's not like we're
you can say I'm a startup.
Yeah, exactly. We can't really claim that as a huge uptick in volume, but we know it's going to be slow. We know it's going to be choppy. That's why we put out the 2 to 3 year estimate. And we know that we're going to have to size for it, because, we're a capital intensive business. We've got huge fixed cost. And so we're doing a lot of things. I'll give you an example on just the power of the culture, right? You really reap what you sow, because you can't suddenly create culture during a period of extreme tumult. You have to have done that in the years before that. And certainly Delta prides itself on that. We've got today 41,000 of our 90,000 employees on voluntary leaves, right? I just want to let that sink in, because that's unprecedented. I think no other business that I've been a part of, I've been, in 4 or 5 large companies in my career, you would not have a hope to get 45% of your teammates taking one for the team. It's not because they have something better to do, right? I mean, what are you going to do right now? You can't travel, right? You can't even go anywhere. So you're basically doing it. You're taking one for each other and taking one for the team. And so I think that gives us confidence that we will right size this company, and we'll come out, whether it's the retirement of some of the fleets that I talked about, or we're going to come out with more voluntary, programs that allow us to hold on to people for when the volume is back, but for the next couple of years allows us to be a smaller, nimbler, more flexible airline. And so that'll be the strength of the airline.
Rahul, let me share with you one of my favorite Ed Bastian, your CEO stories. Ed is an unbelievably responsive executive, for a CEO. I've had him sometimes respond to me within 30 seconds of sending him an email. So this particular time, I was on a flight from Prague, and I was in first row of economy, right behind the business first. And a lady who was obviously not in a good mood threw 3 tantrums even before we took off. So I pressed the call attendant button, and I walked back with her. I said, ma'am, I don't want to pull rank, but I'm a 3 million miler. Either move her or move me. I don't think I can stand a 10-hour flight.
Right.
The lady is in a bad mood. She says, go sit down. Let me see what I can do. Comes back before we take off, moves me to the business first.
To Delta One, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I said, look, ma'am, thank you. I didn't expect that, but give me your name. I'll send a nice note to your bosses. So she brings me her name and she goes, please don't tell them I upgraded you to business first. So I said, okay. So I landed and I said, Ed a note, and I said, Ed, I want to compliment someone, but if it's going to get her in trouble, I don't want to name her, right? Ed responded within 30 seconds. He says, Vinnie, what kind of question is that? If you want to compliment someone, why would we penalize that passenger?
Right.
That to me was like, wow. That is really watching. Yes.
Truly people first, both employees and customers, which, there's no light between that. And so it just gives us clarity of thought at a time when, the crystal balls might be hazy, but we have clarity of thought, purpose, and action coming from the top, great alignment. So we're feeling good. And I think, personally, I'll just leave you with one thought, which is personally, this is my second turn, right? I was in the throes of the banking crisis in 08, 09, 10, and that was bad. And you don't want to wish this on yourself many times in your career. But if I'm going to do this a second time, I couldn't find myself at a better company, right? Just in terms of the collaborative nature and the way that we're all like spirited and doing it together. And we know that we're going to be back. So it's inevitable. That is inevitable. Survival is not an issue. And so that gives us a lot of energy and passion to come back and do what we do, which is serve millions of milers like you, right?
Rahul, this is so nice to hear, given the state that the airline industry is in, how positive, how many times you smiled in the last few minutes, and it's great to hear, and good luck, and a lot of success. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep doing your protocols, and you'll see us on your flights.
I would love to see you on flights, and please come say hi to us in Atlanta when you're next year.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Thanks.